We're now going to toss the mic and the camera over to our Kim Min-ji, who has been conducting a marathon number of interviews with various experts, provides us an in-depth look and analysis into the summit and its developments so far. Min-ji, take it away.
Yes, guys, we're here back at the Main Press Center in Kintex, and we're going to have more in-depth discussions about the agreement that was reached between the two Koreas just moments ago. Joining me live in the studio, to my left is Emmanuel Pastrich, the director of the Asia Institute, and to my right, Bala Salontai, professor of North Korean Studies at Korea University. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so we've seen the announcement made between the leaders of the two Koreas. What have you made of the agreement? What is your perspective of the agreement? So we saw a lot of substantial outcomes towards denuclearization, clauses to achieve denuclearization, as well as other exchanges between the two. In terms of denuclearization, how are you assessing the agreement?
In fact, I feel that it's maybe symbolic that denuclearization is addressed only in the very last point, and most of the other issues are concentrated on economic, cultural, political cooperation. So this may mean that this matter cannot be easily settled without first negotiations with the United States. And so they don't want to make any commitment on this matter before this 4-power or 3-power talks. But as terms of priority setting, it is a bit difficult to say, because the communique is very much a reset, repeating many of the previous ideas. And because we had a very serious crisis just last year and before, so it would have been maybe better to make a more direct reference to the cause of the crisis.
So what about your take? You've been joining us for discussions in our previous newscast, but what's your take on the agreement that was reached between the two Koreas?
Right. Well, it's an extremely comprehensive and ambitious program, and certainly some of the wording in terms of essentially saying there's no war, no hostilities, goes against many of the statements made within the Korean government not so long ago concerning the threat of North Korea. So it's a profound shift. I find it hard to believe that it could have been put through without a broad consultation within South Korea. The question would be what the American response would be to it. And I don't know. But I think you see an effort on the Korean side to seize the initiative in saying that Korea will determine Korea's future. Whether that will be successful or not, I can't tell. But it certainly is a tremendous shift from what we've seen in the past.
So there is a summit between the U.S. and North Korea in the works. What impact could this agreement have on those talks, in your perspective?
Well, I think that it's kind of successful that they managed to engage North Korea more or less at the same time, because if one side does it and the other does not, it can create a kind of serious tension between the two allies. So in the sense, it's a kind of very interesting thing which is mentioned later, that it's expected to be a kind of 4-power coordination with the US and China involved, which is on the one hand perfectly in line with the logic that recently Kim Jong-un met also the Chinese leadership like Xi Jinping. He met now Moon Jae-in. He expects to meet Donald Trump. So it is kind of very logical. What is a bit missing again, that the original concept was 6-power talks, and now Russia, Japan are left out.
Right.
So there have been concerns of some regional powers being left out in the recent developments. So do you see, they said they would step up cooperation with the international community. They're willing to hold multilateral talks with the US and China as well. Do you see the developments playing out to hold multilateral talks down the road?
Well, I guess that depends on what the topic is for the multilateral talks. My guess is that the North Korean perspective would be multilateral talks about general security issues for Northeast Asia, right, including arms limitations, what the U.S. posture would be, etc. And that the United States interpretation would probably be only multilateral talks related to denuclearization. So these are considerably different purposes. The key, I guess, in this would be what South Korea's position. If South Korea takes the position that it will support some more regional agreement, then obviously it will be heading out in a different direction than the United States. My guess, just from reading the declaration and what we heard today, is there has been a decision on the South Korean side that they will go forward with certain visions for what they think what the future of the Korean Peninsula should be, even if it doesn't have full support or even moderate support in the Trump administration or in the sort of mainstream media of the United States. So that's a somewhat risky, somewhat brave decision, but maybe they thought that the time had come.
So there were many issues addressed in the joint the Panmunjom Declaration that they announced earlier this evening. Now, a key here was the phrase denuclearization. They said they would get rid of nuclear weapons on the peninsula because they will pursue a nuclear-free peninsula. North Korea has also been taking a different stance from last year. Since early this year, it's been taking part in the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics last week and announced that it would halt its nuclear missile tests, shut down its Pyongyang nuclear test site. Do you see all these as very calculated move?
Well, in a sense, it's not too difficult to make because, first of all, there was a similar framework in 2012, also about moratorium, that stopping tests and like this. So it was also a way to diffuse tension, but unfortunately it broke down. So this is one issue that in itself, the moratorium is not unprecedented. The important point is to make it work. The other point is that it's really important to consider that so far there was only one nuclear power which ever dismantled its capability, that was South Africa. And it happened during a whole political transition, dismantlement of apartheid, all the regional transformations. So to achieve that with North Korea, it would be really very unprecedented.
Right.
Because as we could see last year when the United Nations, the General Assembly suggested that there should be global denuclearization, every single nuclear power said no, we don't. Once we join the club, we don't want to leave. So this is not easy.
So an important aspect that we have to note here as well is that they said they will implement all the promises they made, as well as the promises that made in past declarations or agreements. How can we overlook to see if this is all being implemented?
Well, that's an excellent question, and it would require, and to some degree the question is what we mean by we, right? Koreans can say that we did this, but whether you have an intrusive verification regime project is something that needs to be negotiated entirely separately, and I can guarantee you that there would be considerable resistance on the North Korean side if it was following what the United States has been talking about over the last couple of years. So it would definitely require, if the United States is involved in this process, considerable, difficult negotiations.
You're a North Korean expert, so you've been looking at North's past behavior as well. How serious do you think North Korea is when it says it's committed to denuclearization? Like, many experts have expressed their doubts when North Korea says this. Today, it kind of made a direct direct comment towards achieving denuclearization on the peninsula. How?
Well, the important point is that Kim Jong-un wanted to meet Moon Jae-in, also he wants to meet Donald Trump. To do it without making a verbal commitment, it's not possible. So for him, this objective is important enough, at least verbally make a promise, which in itself a progress, because since 2012, the government always emphasized that we are a nuclear power, we don't even consider it, we don't even discuss it. And this definitely made China in particular very angry. Right. Worse was than just a nuclear test now and then, because it suggested that before North Korea would negotiate that for which price we give up, then they switched to the position we simply never give up whatever the price. So compared to that, it's definitely an improvement. The other matter is, of course, that how much it's communicated toward North Korean society, because if ordinary people learn that now the government reconsiders the position, it's politically a kind of serious matter. So we will have to see how much the local population will learn about it, because if it's not communicated to the people, then it's a bit difficult to judge how serious it is.
Well, for now, we can say that today's summits did bore some fruit, and we hope that, obviously, that they keep their promises and it's implemented. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's discussions. Thank you for your insights today. And